Have you ever noticed that some of the strongest arguments against God actually borrow from God to even exist? It's like someone stealing your car and showing up at your house to brag about how great their new ride is. That's what happens when people say reason, morality, and science all point away from God when in reality, they only make sense because of Him. Let's talk about it. I call this stealing from God, because many of the arguments that try to tear down faith are actually running on the fuel that faith provides. Take reason, for example. Logic is a fascinating thing. Atheists often claim they stand on reason alone. But here's the thing: reason assumes that the universe operates under consistent, rational laws. Where did those laws come from? A random explosion in space? If everything is just an accident, why should our minds trust the very thoughts they produce? C.S. Lewis once said, "If the brain is the product of mindless matter, why should we trust its reasoning?" It's like shaking up a Coke can and expecting it to spell out Shakespeare. Science is another big one. People sometimes think science and God are enemies, like cats and dogs, but the truth is modern science was built on the belief that the universe is orderly, structured, and discoverable because there's designer behind it. Early scientists like Newton, Kepler, and Galileo didn't study nature to disprove God. They studied nature because they believed God made it work in a way worth exploring. And then there's morality. If there's no God, where do concepts like good and evil come from? If we're just highly evolved animals, morality becomes nothing more than personal preference or cultural opinion. You might think stealing is wrong. Someone else might think it's just a clever way of getting what they want. Without God as the standard, who's right? Even justice, one of the most common objections to Christianity, is borrowed from God's character. People will say, how could a loving God allow evil and injustice? But where did that very sense of justice come from? You can't call something crooked unless you have a straight line to compare it to. Here's the ironic twist: the Bible never tells us to have blind faith. In fact, it encourages us to use reason and evidence. Peter writes in 1 Peter 3:15 to always be ready to give a reason for the hope we have. Paul challenges us to examine everything carefully in 2 Corinthians 10:5. Jesus himself says in Matthew 20-37 to love God with all our heart, soul, and mind. That's not blind faith, that's informed trust. But here's the key difference: belief that God exists is not the same as belief in God. James 2:19 says even demons believe that God exists, and they tremble. Belief that God exists is intellectual. Belief in God is personal trust. Think of it like this: I can believe that an airplane can fly. I can watch it take off and land all day long, but I don't actually trust in that airplane until I step inside and fasten my seatbelt. Christianity is the same. You can believe that Jesus is the Son of God, but salvation comes when you trust in Him personally. So why does this matter? Because a lot of people stop at belief that and never move to belief in. And without that trust, you're just an observer of truth, not a participant in it. And to my friends who doubt, here's something important. Doubt doesn't mean you have no faith. It just means you're looking for answers. God isn't afraid of your questions. But when you examine the evidence with an open heart, you'll see reason, morality, science, justice, they all point back to Him. So the next time someone says they don't believe in God because of reason, science, or morality, you might just smile and think, you're actually borrowing all of that from Him. If this gave you a new way to look at faith, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more videos like this. And check out the one I've linked on the end screen. It dives even deeper into how Christianity answers life's biggest questions.